In this video, we're going to talk about the spirit of fear, but more importantly and specifically, fear of failure. Hey, I'm glad that you're here today. I'm glad you took the time to watch this video. What I want to do is I just want to be transparent and honest with you that fear have plagued my life for years. And I'm going to be even more honest with you, is that anybody that tells you that they are living life, especially in the spectrum of Christian leadership, and have never been fearful of something, they're not telling you the truth. Fear has just been a part of it. And through time, I've had to learn a process, and it's biblical, that helps me to get away from fear and into faith. Understanding that fear and faith empower two different kingdoms. So honestly, if fear is too strong, you're not going to be able to hear God clearly. It's like tuning into a radio station. You're not going to hear him clearly because you're allowing fear to block the signal. One thing I want to share with you that God shared with me that helped me to dispel this fear was everything you need to do what God is calling you to do, he's already placed on the inside of you. The Bible says, in Romans, it talks about that God foreknew us. He foreknew us. He knew us before we knew us. And many times before, if you really look at that closely, that means before you even were able to get scared, he knew everything that's going to cause you fear. And he's already provided a solution for it. Not only did he foreknow us in Romans, it also says he predestined us. That means that God before ended you. If we look at that word predestined, pre is before, destined is in. That means that God created your end and your beginning. Yes. That means that God, being omniscient, where we get the root word of science from, he is an all-knowing God. That means before you ever got in trouble, God already had a way of escape for you. He had a solution, a remedy for your problem before you ever got the problem. So technically, if you look at that, how God is and how good he is, the question is asked, how did I even, or when did my breakthrough even come? Well, since God predestined you, your breakthrough came before you arrived. So this is one of the things that God uses to strengthen me. And I want to give you several things, but I want to go here. There's a scripture that says 2 Timothy 1:7. Now, I've been using this to talk about the spirit of fear, but it says, for God had not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. I need you to understand, let's take all of the plastic off. This is not a new thing anymore because most of us have experienced fear. But fear's goal is to dilute, distract, blur your mind, your spirit. This is what its goal is. It is FEAR, false evidence appearing real. It's also FEAR, forget everything and run. These are the things that fear does. And I don't want to get too much in that. You can also link the video that we talked about this more in depth that you can go and watch that video. But I want to share this with you from this wise here. There's something that I used growing up, loved. I was a huge fan of Superman. Clark Kent, Lois Lane, Superman. Y'all all know this story. Now, throughout life, and I'm going back there because throughout life, there have been several things. Most of us have traumas. We have family traumas. We have relationship things that did not go properly. We just had some things that just, a lot of trauma. We'll say that a lot of things that have went on in our life, whether you're admitting it or not. Some people will, they're vulnerable enough to tell you. But we've had a lot of things that have gone on in our lives. And I'm just going to be even more honest with you. So have I. And so many times we are leading while bleeding and we are converting while hurting. We're still going through our situation. God has just given us a grace to still be able to do his will in spite of where we are. So we're many times are being healed. He's still being revealed and we're still being healed in our lives as we are doing his will, if you would. So we're looking at this, and I call this the way that God helped me to get this fear out of my life. So let's look at Clark Kent, a guy who didn't have all the answers, a guy that was trying to, he was close to Lois Lane. She didn't give him the time of the day, just kind of brush off guy. But Clark had something on the inside of him that he knew was there. But if you notice, and I'm keeping this quick because I'm not preaching, just talking about something that helped me. But if you noticed, whenever Clark would turn into Superman, we all know the story. Clark would turn into Superman, faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive. I may not be saying that right, but you all get the gist. What happens is whenever he changed from Clark Kent to Superman, there was a place he went to transition. All right. So the place that he went to transition was a phone booth. Went in there, and it may not have been but for a split second, and then he come out. I think many times we forget about the significance of that phone booth. God used this to dispel fear, and still uses this to dispel fear out of my life, is that he gives me instructions. But where does he give me those instructions? He gives me those instructions whenever I am at a private place with him. Not distracted by the world, not distracted by family, not distracted by a job, a career, or different things like that. Whenever I am specifically with God, then when I come out of that place, I look different. I receive instructions. Okay, let me share with you this. God's instructions are what changes your life. Not somebody putting oil on you, not somebody getting you to do a praise break. It is following the instructions of God. Whenever you're before God and God gives you those instructions, you even look different around other people. People will see you differently. In the Bible, if we look at Exodus 34 and 29, when Moses came down from the mountain, the people saw him and he looked different. He didn't look like he looked before he went up there. They saw him as he came down with the tablets because he came down with instructions. If we look at another passage of scripture, if we go to John, it's the 9th chapter. Let's go to 2nd verse, starting there. It's the disciples were looking at a man who was born blind, and they asked, who sinned? Who did this? Who caused him to be in this situation? And Jesus said, nobody sinned. And Jesus did something. He gave him instructions. And upon the blind man following those instructions, he went and followed the instructions, and he was healed. Now, I have to tell you this. Could it be that the reason that we're not getting some of the things that we want from God is because we're not following those instructions? Could it be that because the reason that we're not getting those instructions is because we're not allowing God to speak to us in a unique private place away from distractions, where we're not pulling out our phones whenever we get there to see who's texted us, what Facebook notification is going on, or whatever notification is going on, whatever notification you have? Could it be? And so what I've done is I develop a place where only I and God will meet. Only I and God. And when I go in that place as a Clark Kent, as Rock, what y'all see it now, the fearful guy, I go into that place fearful. Many times, it's honest, y'all, let's just be real. God challenges us many times, and we don't know what to do. I'm just being honest with y'all, and I hope that you all are gaining something from this vulnerability that I'm giving. I don't have all the answers. There are two irrefutable facts that I know and I live by. There is a God. Number one, there is a God. Number two, I'm not him. I am not God. I hope that you all understand that. And because I'm not God, I constantly lean and depend on him for his instructions, as you do too, fam. You need to lean and depend on Jesus and nobody else. But we have to make sure, just like I do, I go to this place that it's only me and God. I even have a journal in there. I have a little light in there, a little closet that I go into, and I talk to God. And then not only do I talk to him, but I wait. I'm patient. I worship until he speaks to me. And I write down some of the things that he's putting in my spirit. Because what we'll do, fear, I'm telling you, you have to be careful, because fear sometimes will allow you to confuse God's words with your own words, or God giving you a thought and then you think, that's just me. No. We need the power of that constant communication so we could recognize and differentiate between God's voice and our own inner voice. Because let's be real, We like to say that people are talking negative about us behind our back, backstabbing us, haters, as the world calls them, haters. But sometimes the worst hater you have lives between your own two ears. You have that fear that constantly tells you why you won't be successful, why you will ultimately fail. And what fear does is God gives you what he needs you to do. Fear steps in. Fear makes you feel like that you can't do it. Then you begin to start worrying. Worry is simply a down payment on a problem that you may never have. That's what worry is. It's a down payment on a problem that you may never have. Worry gets in there, then it invites its family members. It invites its family members because worry gets you to do something to get in trouble. Worry causes you to do some things. You're slowing around. You're not doing things like you need to do. And then other things start to happen. Then you have guilt and shame will show up. Guilt is when you hate what you did. Shame is when you hate who you are. And you have all these things that are going on. And the only reason that I'm saying this is you could avoid all of this if you would make sure that you're going in a place to God, a place with God, where it's just you and him. Make that place a sacred place. This is what I do. Make that place a sacred place. And you make sure that you do it enough that you recognize God's voice over your own voice, because you have your inner thoughts. And you need to recognize when it's God speaking and then when it's you speaking. And I say that because it's the consistency of doing it that helps you to recognize your Father's voice. So as we're looking at this, I want to encourage you, because this is something that encouraged me, is that fear is something that's going to happen. But its ultimate goal is to take you out of your clear mind, out of your sound mind, out of your mind of precision and clarity, to take you out of your fear. Gets anxiety to come in. It invites anxiety. It invites worry. It invites a lot of different things. It invites depression, anything to keep you hostage and away from your potential. Your potential is what God is using. If God have done that to you, that means if God have given you a word, that means that God have already placed and deposited inside of you what you need to complete that work. I hope that you get that. Let's go here. If we was looking at it, let's look at it like this. A vending machine. I don't put money, neither do you. I don't put money in a vending machine that has a sign on it that says out of order. I don't do it. I know you don't either. Fam, I know you don't do it and I don't do it. We don't put money in a machine that's out of order. Neither does God put a deposit into anything that is out of order. Listen, the fact that God is giving you instruction mean that you can do it. The fact that I heard God on this is indication enough that you are where you need to be and that he's getting ready to get some glory out of your life. Okay. Let me back up. I get excited because there are so many times that I remember the yesterdays. I remember the yesterdays of what it took for me and what I went through with the fear. A lot of other people knew that I went through fear. A lot of people would look at where I was and what I was trying to accomplish, and they would be fearful for me. Isn't that something? I know I'm not the only one to have loved ones and people who really care about you, accountability partners and different things that are say, man, you sure that's God? I don't know, that might not, you sure that's how they'll do it. And they only love you. But here's the thing with their love, their words will get you to question what God's doing in your life. But the fact that God brought the word should be an indication of what God knows that he's going to do in you. And God already knows that you don't have it. He knows that fear is going to set in. He already knows all the things that you're thinking about yourself. I'm not perfect enough. I don't have enough money. I didn't go to the right school. Whatever your setbacks are that you're thinking about, God already knows it. But when did God stop being God? When did your situation, any situation that comes about in your life, become something that God cannot handle? When? I'll wait. I'll wait. When did your situation become something that God cannot handle? what God always does, and I love him for doing this, is that he challenges us to grow us. And just because you can't see it doesn't mean that it's not God. Fear of failure is only designed by the enemy to get you to never take a step, because failure means that if I fail now, nobody will ever believe in me for the future. That's one thing. The failure of optics, people looking at you. You worried about what people talking about you. You have to be a strong person to not care about the giggles and the sniggles. The giggles and the sniggles, the cackling and going on about failure, because that's what people going to do. But then God shows up. And that's where the glory comes in. The fact, I'm going to share something with you. I've written about 12 books, and I was not a great English student. I was not a great English student at all. But God's glory on my life have allowed me to do what I could not do before. And guess what? With book one, what I said, God, this ain't my area. God, I know I hear you, but I didn't do good. I was looking back on all my grades. I was looking back at all the times I failed at it in school. I can think back to some of the teachers that hated to see me coming, because they already knew that I needed to be in some remedial English or something to that nature. But God stepped in. I want to remind you and encourage you, when you're moving forward in God, don't forget how good he's been to you. Don't forget. And the glory of God is not for everyone else only. It's for you too, for you to know. That's why we praise him, because we know if God hadn't done this, it'd have never been done. I can't do none of this on my own. This is God that does it all. I want to encourage you. Don't allow the fear of failure to win in your life. Don't allow the fear of failure to win in your life. Allow God to keep doing great things in your life, because he's going to make you greater now and not greater later. If you enjoyed this content, I want you to subscribe to this channel. But I also I'm going to link in the description one of the previous videos on fear. And I want you to keep up with us as we're going through this fear process. And I want you to comment down below. Let me know what areas that you've been growing out of. Let me know if this video gave you some information that you needed. Let me know your ways that you overcame fear. Put that down in the comment. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Until next time, we'll see you in the next video.